All right, well, good evening, everyone. We're so glad that you've joined us for our board meeting. It is 6 p.m. We'll call this meeting to order. Everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. For anyone in the audience, if you're planning on speaking during our public comment portion, if you wouldn't mind, please filling out a form located in the hallway and then handing the form to the clerk. We'll make sure we take time to listen to you tonight. The first thing on our agenda is our roll call attendance. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Director Ray. Director Ray.
Sorry, yep, I'm here.
Director Kelly.
Here.
Director Kingman.
Here.
President Levesque.
Here.
Director Knapp.
Here.
Student Advisor Schroeder.
Here.
Student Advisor Levon. Superintendent Sweeting.
Here. Thank you. Next, we'll have our approval of the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda, or do I have a motion to approve it as presented?
Make a motion, we approve the agenda. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Madam Clerk?
Director Ray.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Thank you. Next up is our approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes, our regular meeting minutes from March 13th and our special board study session minutes from March 20th. Do I have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from March 13th?
I'll make a motion, we approve the regular meeting minutes from March 13th. I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the regular meeting minutes from March 13th. Madam Clerk?
Director Ray.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Thank you. Our next minutes are the special board meeting study session minutes for March 20th. Do we have a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion, we approve the special board meeting study session minutes from March 20th. I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the special session minutes from March 20th. Madam Clerk?
Director Ray.
Aye.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Thank you. Those minutes are now adopted. Next on our agenda is our public comment portion. And we do have a couple people signed up to speak. And so I'm going to read our script that we have. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of involving members of the public in its meeting. The board appreciates feedback in order to make the best decisions possible to benefit students. In order to permit fair and orderly expression of public comment, the board will provide a period of time at the beginning of each regular meeting during which visitors may address the board on any topic within the scope of the board's responsibility. Anyone addressing the board tonight, whether it be in person or virtually, has completed a public comment form and read and agreed to the district's instructions for public comment prior to this meeting being called to order. When the board president calls your name, please step up to the microphone if attending the meeting in person. If attending the meeting virtually, please join as a panelist, allow video, and unmute your microphone. Please refrain from comments that are an invasion of privacy, violate school district policy related to harassment, intimidation, bullying, or discrimination, are disruptive, irrelevant, libelous, slanderous, or profane. And please limit your comments to 3 minutes. The board does not respond to questions during the business meeting in order to comply with the state of Washington's Open Public Meetings Act. The board's silence does not signal agreement or endorsement of the speaker's remarks. Depending on the nature of your topic or questions, the superintendent may ask staff to contact you to answer questions or provide information. The board president may interrupt or terminate an individual statement if it is uncivil or exceeds the allowed time. Each speaker will be given one opportunity to speak. So we actually removed the microphone, so you can just speak freely at the podium. And our first person that signed up to speak is Dwayne Scott. Please come. And we will start it. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sweeney School Board, for allowing me this opportunity to speak before you tonight. I'm Dwayne Scott, a father of a sophomore at high school and an employee here at President's Elementary. I'm a sped ed parent educator at the school. I have a couple of questions that just wanted to read out loud. The AQI, last fall we had some AQI problems, and I was just curious if we've taken the steps to install an AQI reader here at our elevation by Marysville elevation. The elevation at Marysville is 19 feet above sea level, and here it's 1900s feet above sea level. So it was a concern as paras and children are outside. The readings were good down there, but not up here. My second question is, I've been looking for policies. Can you please clarify the policies and procedures for discipline towards staff members that place hands on students excessively? Next question, as part of the classified union negotiation team for the next year's contracts, I would like to better understand the steps that the district office has taken or will undertake to assist the budget before cutting those individuals on or at the building level. I've been through a couple of the video conferences, in-person conferences as we were talking. The slideshow has been modified to a couple of my questions that I've asked at those meetings. So just wanted to ask that part of it. And my third and final question tonight, or fourth, sorry. Just today, a position was brought online to renew an executive assistant to operations secretary position. This position, the opening was, it's for all the position requested was a GED and minimum hours as a secretary somewhere else. Compare that with a para educator that has to have a minimum of 72 hours college credits. And the positions, the one position is starting off at $67,000 a year, where a paraeducator that has to have some college, the max that they make minimum starting is $27,000 a year. This is a prime opportunity for the board to reset this position, since it's a new position, at a lower rate to help with the budget at this time. I understand that secretary positions are very important, the documentation, the crossing the I's, the dotting the T's, but it's the same across the street as the paras taking care of small children that either can't communicate or are having issues on how to communicate their feelings to other students. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Sky, for being here. We appreciate your care and interest in our school and our district. Next up, we have Nathan Impson. Nathan, please approach the podium.
Board members, my name is Nathan Impson, and I live right down the street here on East Fifth and McLeod. And I wanted to address the early release Fridays that goes on. Bought our house about 3 years ago and started noticing, this huge influx of children coming through the neighborhoods. And over that time, just why I'm here today, for the last couple of years, we've dealt with so many problems because of that kind of stuff. I live by a board member, city councils. I've talked to her about this, and all the board members that actually live here in town have a problem with it too, because their houses and, all the stuff that goes on. Letting a bunch of unsupervised children take off, flood the neighborhoods, and then flood the downtown core has been a problem. To the point where Arlington Harbor had to hire security. People won't let the kids in their businesses with backpacks. I mean, because things are getting stolen, property's getting damaged. For us, we've had eggings on the houses and all around. We've had a very expensive vet bill because kids were throwing nails in our yard, and our dogs are running up and down the fence, and a nail punctured a dog's foot. You know, we've had bullet casings thrown in neighbors' yards, you know, just a lot of things. And I think at this point, talking to all my neighbors and living next to the SRO, the school resource officer has been helpful because he knows about all these things. Talking to city council members about it, they say, go to a board meeting and let them know. I'm sure it's not something you guys haven't already heard before, but I think when the day comes that you guys talk about this, it's something to be considered because it's become a huge nuisance and a huge problem. Unsupervised children is never good. And the amount of things that we've seen, the bullying, the fighting in the neighborhoods, the damage of property, you know, running around deciding they just want to cut down our rose bushes to take flowers, you know, destroying our property. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, and it gets old. And I just wanted to bring that to your guys' attention because I'm speaking for myself and a lot of other people, at least in the areas that I live. Every Friday having to go outside and be out there, making sure kids aren't messing with our stuff, throwing nails in our yard, you know, things like that. And most of the kids are good, but a lot of them aren't, and it's becoming a problem, huge problem. Downtown, uptown, here, neighborhoods. And I'm just here to speak to that. And thanks for listening.
Thank you, Nathan, for
Yeah.
coming and sharing. Is there anyone else that was wanting to speak to the board in person or on Zoom? All right, next up is the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes our budget and enrollment reports, our personnel report, warrants, overnight trip for the Skills USA Culinary Early Education to state conference in Tacoma, and an overnight Skills USA Manufacturing Construction BGD to the state's conference in Tacoma, and then an FBLA overnight trip to Spokane, and an overnight trip for the AHS Girls Golf to Orondo, Washington, and then a Washington State Arts Commission interagency agreement for art and public business program. Does anybody want to pull anything from the consent agenda, or do we have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
Make a motion, we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Madam Clerk.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Thank you. The consent agenda is now adopted. Next up on our agenda is our new business portion, and that will begin with our report of donations that are approved by the superintendent for March. Dr. Sweeting.
Good evening. So in March, I approved 3 donations. 2 were for Eagle Creek and 1 was for Pioneer. The first one for Eagle Creek was for $1,150, and it's from Petite, and it's going to be used for field trips and a garden and the 4th grade solar power project, which is awesome. So that's good news. And the next one is a donation of 500 library books with an approximate value of $4,500 from Iveda Phi Fraternity Days of Service to increase literacy and to increase access to quality literature at Eagle Creek for the children. And then the last, the donation from it's from the Pioneer PTSA for $4,495.55 for the purpose of providing 5 water refilling stations for the students and staff, which is awesome and a good thing. So great donations, generous community, and very, very proud of these efforts of our community to support us. That's it.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, and that is wonderful. And we don't have to approve any of them because they are under the threshold. So thank you for bringing them to our attention and thank you for the donations. That's wonderful. Next up on our new business portion of our agenda is our draft reduced educational programs for 23-24. And we've got a few people that are going to be joining us. We're going to introduce our budget advice. You want to just take over?
I think I will.
Yes.
But I'm gonna put up the, I was just trying to see who else was on. Okay. So I wanted to start the evening, we have, people that have, a few of the people that were on the Budget Advisory Task Force that have joined us tonight. I really wanted to acknowledge them for the work that they have done and continue to do. Actually, it's close to 30 people that were involved with the Budget Advisory Task Force. And they started meeting in November and coming together and grappling with, first of all, learning about public education school funding, which is very complex. And so they grappled with that and then grappled with why we're here having to do reductions at this time, and then bringing a recommendation to myself and then to the board. But in this room, anyone, because I know there's several of you, would you please stand? And because I see Scott and we have Nancy and Gina, of course, and anybody else? Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. And there, I was trying to see if we have anybody online, but I don't think so. I don't see anybody, but these people continue to be committed. They're going to meet again. We're going to meet again after the legislatures have they have finished, and we're going to continue to talk more. So moving forward, I'm going to start, and then Gina's going to have a conversation with you about the plan. But I wanted to talk to you about the process that we've been in and how we've come to this plan that you're going to see, and that it's been publicized. It's a draft plan. So first of all, the draft plan has been created considering a lot of feedback. In fact, this is a stack of feedback forms. There are 201 feedback forms with over 804 entries, and that's just minimal. And all of the feedback from these documents have been coded into a system where we tried to identify top worries, top values and priorities, top hope and ideas and questions. So tonight I'm going to give you some in graph form what the feedback tells us. But we have feedback from our Budget Advisory Task Force, community budget forums. We've had 2. We have one tomorrow night and one on Wednesday. That's a Zoom. Tomorrow night is at Eagle Creek in person. We've gone to, I believe, we've gone to every school, and we've tried to go to every department in the district as best we could. Every corner of the district to ask for their feedback and to also share why we're in this place. We sent out a budget survey, a community budget survey, and I'll share the results of that. Our district leadership team has engaged in conversations and feedback opportunities. Cabinet members every week since last year, actually, and then board members as well. So a lot of feedback. So first, with all of that, this is just a long list of dates. So these are just dates that we've met with different places and key messages and had feedback opportunities. And this is just a picture of one of the community forums. This one was at Post. The evenings they played out, and tomorrow night, if you come, we talk a bit about school financing and why we're here, what are the factors contributing to why we're here. And then we meet in small table groups and talk, and then we have share out. So here's the first graph, and I'm going to share with what we did is we combined with the help of my executive assistant Debbie Montgomery. She did a lot of work in helping me with this, but there's three categories: worries, priorities, and ideas. And so what I've done is this first section is about what are people worried about? And so this is from this is a combined graph for the two community forums. So, and it's a combination of parents and staff, some students, and such. So the top worry, loss of staffing. The second, program services cuts. And then you can see the rest. And there were many others. These just played out at the top. So that's the budget community forums. Elementary, we combined the elementary schools together. Top worry, loss of staffing. Next worry, larger class size. I'm just going to go over the top two right now and so forth. Middle school, top worry, loss of staffing. Second worry, larger class sizes. High school, top worry, loss of staffing. The next one, larger class size. Kind of a common thread. Next one is our school of choice. Top worry, but there's kind of, it's really side by side with support for students. It's larger class size and support for students. Other departments, so this would include nutrition services, our grounds, maintenance, custodial, district office, thank you. Just it was as anyone else that's not really assigned to a school building for the primary, for their focus, the primary focus of their job. So number one, loss of staffing. Number two, support for students. And that these were just the top four that we pulled out. And now we're going to move into the next section of values and priorities. But before I do that, there is a key message there that loss of staffing, number one word, and a loss of support. So moving on, any comments about that?
What percentage of respondents to this survey were teachers and staff? We're probably worried about.
There were more staff, because we had two community forums, and I think one had about 25 people and the other had maybe 20 people. So 50 community members versus almost every staff member, almost, not quite, but, and not all staff members filled out a form, but they all could fill out a form. So a lot of staff. This is what they value or what their priorities are. So this is from the community forum. So primarily community members, but there were some staff members there too. Safety, number one, but it gives equitable and quality education. They're tied. So those two together. The second one, program services offerings. Then you can kind of go down the list: social and emotional support, less district office staff, support for students, staffing support, reasonable class sizes, positive environment, and facility improvements. So those were like the top 10. Moving on. Elementary, what were their values, their top values and the top priorities? Number one, reasonable class size. Makes sense. That's what they're worried about, but that's what they desire. And support for students, staffing support, social emotional learning support, program services, offerings, equitable and quality education, behavior support, this staff care and support and working conditions. There's just kind of a long group clustered there together, and less DO admin staff and safety. Next, middle school, top 10 values and priorities, reasonable class size, support for students, and program services and offerings. And you can kind of scan that down the list. High school, values and priorities. The number one here was the staff care and supports and the working conditions. That was number one. And the reasonable class size was number two, and then support for students and equitable and quality education, social emotional learning support program and services offerings. The top 10 is very similar among the groups. Next group, schools of choice, support for students and safety, both right at the top of the same. Staffing support and social emotional learning support, facilities improvement, equitable and quality instruction. So you can see that. Other departments, support for students, staffing support, equitable and quality education. Social and emotional learning, fiscal responsibility, and reasonable class sizes. So even in our departments, where it's, you know, like nutrition services and such, they're talking about reasonable class sizes. These are ideas. So I'm going to go back. Any questions about the priorities or the values? Okay. Next are ideas. So we were just trying to collect as many ideas. Some of these could be increased revenue, some could be, you know, reducing some costs. So you're going to see some interesting things here. So this is from the community forums. Number one, have parents pay for the school supplies again. We've been very, very fortunate here in Arlington to be able to pay for the last at least 5 years, 6 years, 7 years for school supplies. And it's been a good thing. It's just, we're in a place right now that we, you know, that's being considered. It is on our plan today, the education reduction plan. The next one, parents pay for athletic sports fees. We recently, in the last few years, we took that on as a district that we would pay for that, but now it's on the list as well. So this is what was presented at the forum, and it actually is on the list, and then the budget advisory task force as well. Next one, advertise for the benefits we have. In other words, what about kindergarten? Why would you even want to come to kindergarten? And what do we have available for our career checkup programs? What do we have available at our elementary school for literacy support? All of these things advertise, tell the good news about what we have, about our schools of choice, that there's other choices for coming to school here other than 5 days a week. You can have an alternative schedule if you would like. Parents pay for summer school. We did use our ESSER funds, which are our emergency funds from the COVID time, where we use that to pay free. Like the parents, their children could come to summer school free. We paid for that. We are no longer, I mean, it's on the list that we would charge tuition.
I think we already voted to change that.
Well, we voted for the fee, but not to, I mean, it's part of that. But there's a fee, you're right. And then the next one is get all possible revenue, whatever sources those might be, get all the possible revenues. That means grants. That could mean maybe through our facility rentals, those kinds of things. And reduce staffing with higher salaries, reduce DO staff, reduce non-essential spending, and use more fund balance. So those were that was from the community forums. From elementary school, some of their ideas. Number one, again, parents pay for school supplies. You'll see that theme. Retirement incentives, get all possible revenues, advocate at the state and federal level for funding. Parents pay for athletic and sports fees, reduce DO staff, 4-day school week, that'd be awesome. That would be really awesome. But there are implications for that, because we are required by the state of Washington to have school 180 days. We can get a waiver for 7, but not as many as what a 4-day week would ask us to do. And then it has reduced staffing and hours where we can, advertise for the benefits we have, and reduce administrators. So that was from elementary. The retirement incentives, I will tell you, we do have, when staff notify us by a certain date, they can do a 10-day project, which gives them additional money. We extended the deadline for that. So we did do some of those incentives this year. Middle school, improve efficiencies, get all revenue possible, reduce DO staff, advertise for the benefits we have, reduce administrators, and retirement incentives. Now, this seems really strange. These blocks are very big, but there was only 4 people that gave us some ideas from the high school. So we're just, here we go. reduce DL staff, and have retirement incentives. So they're pretty large, but they represent more people. Schools of choice, number one, parents pay for school supplies. The next one is the tide. For the first one is parents pay for athletic and sports fees. Next one, parents pay for summer school, get all the possible revenue and so on. You can read, they're very similar to what we talked about. Next one, other departments improve efficiencies. Parents pay for summer school, get all possible revenue, retirement incentives, parents pay for school supplies and reduce where we can. Common themes. Now, that was the end of the ideas. And there were many more ideas, trust me, we have, a lot of, they've been typed up, all the ideas been typed up, but these are the ones that came to the top. Now, what the next slides combine everybody's thoughts to the top 5 worries, the top 5 priorities and values, and the top 5 ideas. So this one, I took all the community forums, took all of the staff feedback, and made one chart for each of those. So the next one is the worries. So the top worry for everybody that's given us their feedback is loss of staffing. The next one is larger class sizes. The next one, support for students, program and services cuts, and working conditions. Those were the top 5 worries. Combined, the top values and priorities, reasonable class sizes, support for students, equitable and quality education, safety, and social emotional learning support. Those were the top priorities. Not the only, but the top. Ideas. Number 1, parents pay for school supplies. Number 2, get all possible revenue. Number 3, parents pay for athletic and sports fees. And the next one, retirement incentives. And the next one, improve efficiencies. So that's from gathering, that's from what we described, from gathering our feedback, and we continue doing that. The next, we did a survey that went out for about a week, and we had 833 people. This went out to all students in grades 6 through 12. It went out to all families, and it went on our district website, and where anybody in the community could fill it out, and staff. So is that, and we had 833 respond. So here's the results of that survey. This just shows you, okay, it shows here 828, but who are the people that responded, whether they were a parent, a student, a community member, or a staff member. So we kind of see that more parents than in this particular feedback pathway. This just shows you, so Arlington High School had quite a bit, respond to this survey. So the top 5 priorities, so the top 5 values, and the, the terms might be a little bit different, but I think they play into that. When you think of the previous feedback, it said reasonable class size, that could relate to teaching and instruction, what that might look like. So top 5, teaching and instruction. Next one, safety and security. The next one, focused academic support, social emotional behavior support, and paraprofessional support. Those were the top 5 from that survey. The lowest, because we want, everything is important, but there were 18 areas listed. Those were the top 5. These were the bottom 5, or the lowest 5. And you can see that online learning option is there, but you think about it, many might think they didn't like online learning when it happened during COVID, so they would put that at the bottom. But for some, it's a valuable educational resource to them right now. And I will say publicly that just because something's at the very end doesn't mean it's going away, because it's not, because it's a valuable thing. But can we do it a little bit differently, or just be mindful of that? And then, of course, you can see district office, grounds and facility maintenance, athletics and activities, and custodial services. So it's just the top 5 and the lower.
What's the lowest? We're looking for the lowest fire.
That's
the very lowest.
online.
Oh, okay.
That is the lowest of all of that. Of all the 1 to 18, that was the lowest. So you saw the top of the 1 to 18, you saw the top 5 and you saw the,
And the fire business, that's in school.
yeah, that's right. You have to kind of look at what perspective. So then we did here is we took from the feedback and from the budget survey and compared them. So you can see just what I shared with you, the survey results, teaching and instruction and safety, and then you can look at the gray, the little bit gray shaded one, that's from the feedback of meeting with people one-to-one. And it's a little bit, the one from the feedback, you know, we have to actually read what is written here and code it and make some kind of judgment about what's written and actually be able to read it. But we did the best that we could in coding that. And so just to give a comparison for that. And with all of that feedback, you know, and having time to meet together, we've developed a reduction plan, knowing that the priorities are what's happening in the classroom and trying to guard as much as we can that takes care of the classroom. And so I'm going to have Gina come up and I'm going to stop sharing. She's going to talk about our proposed or draft education reduction plan.
Hello, Gina Zutenhorst, Executive Director of Financial Services. And yes, it is my duty now to go through what we have come to for a plan for a reduced educational program. So this is the first time that we're getting to see in a public format what we are driving towards in order to achieve the level of reductions that we believe are going to be necessary to get our budget right-sized for the next fiscal year. You can see, and I'll kind of just go through that with you. We'll also look at a draft of what the resolution that would be for board approval, because it's a board resolution that will be taken action on. We just have the draft today. And it refers to the plan that is a part of that resolution and becomes part of the resolution by its reference. So we're looking at draft of both of these today, and then we will hear from you and also bring it back in the April 10 board meeting and propose that for approval. There is some significant sensitivity on the time frame that we're working under to move forward with the plan, because I have this written into the board plate that all have ability to reference, that state law requires that certificated employees must be notified in writing of non-renewal of their employment contract on or before May 15. And there's a couple of RCWs that are referenced that go with that. But the approval of a reduced educational program resolution by April 10 board meeting facilitates that process by helping ensure that employees that may be affected by this plan can be timely notified prior to the May 15 deadline. So there's some time sensitivity to that. And I'll talk through the items on the plan. We have listed admin, district office, and operational supports, employee costs as it's the first category there. And we have compiled that we believe we can get to $723,000 of reductions or in cost savings in that category. And going into the non-employee costs, we've listed out some of the departments that are in the district office or the operational district-wide support area, such as technology and support services, grounds and maintenance type things. And these are non-employee costs. So they are supplies and contractual services and things like that. And we have come to approximately 345,000 plus amount there to be reducing. And we're going to continue to be looking at, as we fine tune those budgets, to continue to crimp down on that as well. Next, school building certificated staff employee costs. We have come to that. We have an FTE of 25.8. that would be reduced. And this comes to about 3.3 plus $1 million. And some of that includes a redesign of some of how the program and services are delivered, the model for special education. So there's some of that is included in there. Next, we have school building classified staff. So the employee costs associated with that, it equates to about 13.7 of a employee FTE. And that is identified to come to 700 and approximately 705,000 if I round is the total cost on that. And there's also some impact with special education in there as well in the redesign of the model and delivery and services of those programs. Moving onward, we have 4 FTE identified under the COVID-19 grant funded support staff employee costs. We have about 4 FTE there, and that is about $373,000. That would be a cost savings there as those were grant funded and that funding is non-continuing. The materials and supplies, equipment, services, travel, non-employee costs. These are more tied to what's happening or what would impact buildings as well. But they're detailed out. We have a district allocation that we had been setting aside on a yearly basis of $10,000. And so we're freezing that for now. We have an amount set aside that we're holding still, and that's for the band uniform replacements, the marching band and the performing band. And when those go, it's very expensive when they're to be replaced. And after 20 or so years, it is about $200,000 because we just had to replace those about 5 years ago. So we are having to freeze that for the time being. And then freezing the music instrument replacement and repair set aside, that one as well, we'll set aside. We have been setting that aside. We'll have to freeze that. The schools still have building budget funds that they use for replacement and repair. But this was a bigger amount set aside for some of the bigger replacements that might have to be done on an annual basis. So we're freezing that. And then discontinuing the school supply budget allocation, that's about $87,000. That was something that came in feedback as well from our community and from our schools and from many people. So we are going to discontinue, assuming that the plan is approved as such, that with that in there, it will be discontinuing school building budget allocation. It's about 87,000 all across, not each, but all across the district. And then reducing building budgets by 10%. And we've worked with our school building principals on that already this year so that they've identified how that's going to work for them to be what they will do or not do. So they've prioritized where they can reduce or not spend certain things. And reduce athletic budgets by 5%. That's another 50,000. And again, we'll be looking more detailed at that as well, but coupling that and combining that with also that we're reinstating athletic participation fees. If this is part of the plan that's approved, and that's skipping down into the increased revenues, but I will go ahead and jump down there. Reinstating summer school tuition, we've talked about that. That would be about $30,000 in revenues for supporting that program. The district does still subsidize that program. It's a pretty critical thing for students that are in need of recovery of credits so that they can graduate, which is one of the primary goals of the district is for students to graduate. Sorry, don't mean to put anything other than that needs to be right now talked about, but, and then we've got the reinstate athletic participation fees on there for 100,000. And that was something we used to charge. It was about $100 per sport, per student. I believe it was capped at 2 sports. So all of those things combined brings us to about 5.9 million. And that all combined is about 48.3 employee FTE. And I want to also remind us all of why we're doing this. Many school districts across Washington state are experiencing similar challenges, and we have, as a board, have talked about that. Either in the prior year they're experiencing it, the current fiscal year, or they'll be making adjustments in the next fiscal years due to similar situations as what the district is experiencing. The primary issues which are contributing to the need for making reductions include inflation. We've been talking about that, which is not only causing higher costs for goods and services, but also for staffing costs that are increasing with the anticipated cost of living increases and negotiated salary increases across multiple labor groups. Next, we've been talking about this one as well frequently, is the exhaustion of pandemic-induced federal and state aid, which were non-recurring funds. And then enrollment declines. You've had enrollment declines that have not recovered to pre-pandemic levels. And I know that the board has heard a lot about that from me, especially over the months that were. Next, maintenance of higher staffing levels during and directly after the pandemic, as schools were directly tasked with mitigating impacts of the pandemic and taking measures to accelerate student learning. Another one, use of one-time excess fund balance. So we had a higher fund balance than would be necessary or required of us. We used that excess fund balance and then a portion of our minimum reserves during the 22-23 fiscal year. That's positioning us for needing to make these reductions this year, coming year. And the state's funding model. So this is a big one. The state's funding model continues to lead to funding gaps. Specific to the state's funding model, challenges include declining regionalization, continued state underfunding of the true costs of education, special education, and staffing costs outside of the typical school funding model. So I really wanted to make sure to reframe those reasons. A summary of those reasons is also listed in the board resolution. It's that commemorates what the background is around needing to make the reductions that we are planning to make. In previous presentations to the board, we have had financial highlights of the current budget, and we've continually indicated that future year forecasts signal a need to make reductions by a minimum of $5 million. And the information that would be necessary to project firmer estimates for next year, those are not presently able to be reliably compiled. And those decisions must be made at this juncture in order that the appropriate preparations can be made with the goal of achieving an appropriately balanced budget in the next fiscal year. With the uncertainty of these matters in mind, the present range of potential reduction could fall between 6.5 million. And therefore we are, after coming through a comprehensive process of communication and seeking input from parents, staff, community, students, those have all helped inform the decision-making process. The district has developed this present draft and a draft resolution for approximately 5.9 million, which is a little bit in the middle. Worth of request. That's worth of costs and what those could entail. So the board may discuss and comment on the proposed draft. But again, that resolution and plan could be further refined after input from the board and will be brought to the April 10 board meeting for consideration of adoption.
Gina, I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
So when I'm looking at the certificated staff of 25.8, I guess full-time enrollment, and then classified staff of 13.7, can you tell me what percentage reduction you're talking about for certificated? What percentage of whole certificated staff is 25 people?
Did somebody divide 25 by 350?
350. Okay, total.
0.0714.
0.07. So, okay, so that's wow. Okay. So, and then how many do you know how many classified staff we have?
Do you want to take 13.7 divided by 207?
I was
Okay.
212, but
220? I'm sorry, I don't have the exact number.
do 212. I think it's in.
Point
Okay.
06.
How much, wait, Nancy knows.
Last time was 336.
For classified,
That might be head count.
Oh, okay, not
FT, we're doing.
Not
FT.
if there's that.
Thank you.
6.5%.
Okay. 6.5%. Okay. All right. Yeah, I just think of, when I look at 25.8, that's a lot of teachers. I don't know. Just my concern.
And the
Thank you.
thing is that, just so the board knows too, is that of the 25.8, we have retirements, we have leaves. We have some positions that we will keep, but they're gonna move to funding through grants. So what that means is 25.8, they're not gonna be funded. You know, they're either be non-renewed or they will not be funded through the general fund. They will be, we've been learning a lot about that in Gina's Roadshow, you know, about the difference between the general fund and all the other funds, but there's resignations, retirements, leaves, and grant funded. Those are the kind of different 4 categories. But there will be some individuals that will be non-renewed.
Good.
At this
Thank you.
point,
Thank you for clarifying that.
And so I'm sorry. Just to kind of add to that, I was wondering the percentage of the admin district office and operational support, what's the percentage?
okay,
there?
so you would take 29, Gina?
Maybe we would go, 29.
29, but
Try it
there's-
one way.
I would do
4.8 divided by 29. Thanks, Kyle. Put me on the spot.
It's 16.5%.
But then also,
I would do that because that 4.8 equates, there's some other districts, because that's admin and district office, so do
so
it
it's not-
divided by 2.
The 16.5%.
No, did you use 28 or 29?
29.
29 by, so that's 15, that's more like what that would be for admin.
Okay.
And that's probably about as quick on the fly that we'll be able to do certain computations in the board, meeting, but certainly ask. them.
Gina, I know you probably can't answer this, but how is this gonna impact the classroom?
There's formulas that are followed for targets where it drives how much staff we need to have at each building. And then there's an idea of what that would generate for class size. So it is. I don't know how to
Do
say.
we know
it,
what
even though
class sizes we're aiming for right now?
Well, so according to the collective bargaining agreement with our teachers union, there's ratios, and it's what we did is, so based on the agreements that we have, we would not even go to that exact number. We're still below that by 1 or 2, and it's like, 1 to, Eric is here. Eric, is it 1 to 27 for high school? What did we do for the ratio? We did 1 to 27 for high school and 1 to 26 for the middle school. And 1 to 25 for 4th through. Yeah, there's different ratios according there, but the ratio in our collective bargaining agreement is a little bit higher, but we stayed a little bit below. It will mean though that there will be some classes in overload, because when you get, what it means is when you get to that target, then there's overload pay. So if we take our projected enrollment for the high school and we go 1 to 27, that tells us how many teachers we would have at this school based on that. There will be some class that will have more students just based on the class, like math and English and social studies tend to have higher class sizes, you know, just the way it is. What did you come up with, Eric?
4-5 is 25.5 and K3 is 19. We have the K3 ratio that's 17 required by the state, so we try to, balance, try to budget our staff at a level that's gonna help us meet that ratio that's required by the state to make sure we get all the funding that we can, otherwise they reduce our funding, so we want to make sure we're meeting that 17 number.
Which we've got a recent report that we're way under the 17, like significantly.
This year was different because we maintained our staffing levels too, so
We're way under.
our kindergarten came in way low, so that was. The ratio was never really in doubt this year.
Yeah, it was very low.
So you said 19?
You're budgeting 19 next year. We also keep in mind that we get to count specialists in that. So our specialist staff get to work in that ratio, so that's what, and some special education, I believe, Gina, is that right?
Portion.
So a portion of those things also go, so even though we staff it higher than 17 for the classroom teachers, other teachers get to count towards that.
So we won't lose our funding.
Hoping
We
to
won't
be
lose our-
underneath that.
Especially if we get more kindergartners then.
I will say it's always a little bit of a guessing game too, because you don't know how it's going to depend on the number of teachers, but also the number of kids. So, you know, we're trying to balance that. Hopefully, we're accurate on our enrollment estimate, and then the staffing ratio that we're using. We hope that that drives the right number of staff to meet 17, but it's not a perfect science.
Has everybody spoken up? Sherry,
I have more, but I can wait because I know.
this is our time. I'm hoping everybody wants to speak up. Dr. Kingman.
So, are the teachers that end up being rift, is the word,
No, there's
not continued?
non-renewed, there's
Non-renewed.
rift, reduction in force, which is a different process, which is a process, or there's non-renewal. At the moment, we are focusing on non-renewal versus.
So of those teachers who are non-renewal, who decides who those people are and what classes, what buildings? That's a next level
Yeah, we,
analysis?
yeah, basically, if you're doing a reduction in force, then it's purely seniority. You put all the staff that are certificated and you put them in seniority order with the experience in the state of Washington. That's for the reduction in force, and there's different rules, but according to our agreement. For the non-renewal, it's when an individual that's certificated that has they have a provisional contract with us, so it's kind of probationary, but Eric can probably explain this better, but it's like some are provisional 1, that's their first year with us, some are provisional 2, or they might be provisional 3, they might have a first year with us, but they have experience from someplace else, but they're new to us. Those individuals are they're in what we wouldn't call continuing status at that point, and so you can look at that and you can non-renew, but there's some reasons for that. Having a need to reduce budget can be one of those reasons. But what we have done is we've actually not required, but it makes sense. We put all of them in seniority order and we just kind of look at that. But it doesn't always work out as a pure science because someone might be the last on the very end, but if you let that person go, then you'd have no program. Or if a program requires 2 and you take 1 away, so you have to look, when you're doing that, you have to look at program needs. And Eric, you want to add anything else to that?
No, that's accurate. We're looking at experience level as well as what they're teaching and what programs they're in, and hard to fill positions too is a concern for us.
Thank you.
And so with non-renewals, it's unfortunate for anybody to not have a position, but it's the people that we would be, we're trying to make that list very small. That's why we're giving it some time to see where we are in the whole process. And I said that we gave an extra incentive for our retirement, we lengthened that deadline. We have some other in the CBA, that collective bargaining agreement, that you can go on a leave for a year and then be able to come back and be guaranteed a job. But if you do a second year, that's not so much the case, but I extended that. So if somebody's contemplating doing a second, maybe even a third, but just a longer period of time, a leave for this time, you know, it allows someone else to not be non-renewed at this time. We're looking at that angle.
Director Ray?
No.
Do you have any comments?
No comments. I spoke with Dr. Sweeting earlier in the week pretty extensively about it. I have a good understanding of it. And appreciate all the other input from the board.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. Student advisor, sure. I'm hoping that you have some comments or.
Two questions. So the first one is, we have athletic budgets going down $50,000.
Yeah.
And then we have the athletic participation fees are going to gain 100,000. So do the participation fees go towards the athletic budgets?
Yes,
So are they effectively gaining a $50,000 bonus this next year because we're instituting the fees?
no,
No?
but,
She'll try to explain this.
yes.
Okay.
Good question, though.
Yeah, no, when we stopped charging for the fees, because they used to charge for them, we stopped collecting and we infused their budgets with the difference. So now we're collecting and taking back what they were given. So that's kind of the way that it works, but it's not a perfect science with that.
Got it. And then the next question was, the building budgets went down 10%, but the athletic budgets went down 5%. And I know that in terms of clubs and athletics, at least at the high school, we're at like an all-time low compared to how many students we have. So I was wondering why the building budget went down more than the athletic budget if we're seeing less students per capita
Right.
participating in athletics.
So the athletics budget is stand apart from the activities budget, and I don't believe we have touched that. That one has been left intact. Building budgets, that is for the academic side of everything that is given to the school building principal. And then they work with their teachers in their own office, what they know they need to do with those funds. So they're different animals, yes.
Okay.
I do think that there is more work to be done around looking at athletic budgets, and I will not be resting without looking more.
All right, thank you.
Gina, I had a kind of a financial question as well.
Go ahead.
So I'm just curious, I know we talk about our enrollment and I'm magic numbers. I'm wondering if we're able to play with any numbers of what it would be, what it would mean to our school district if we gained 50 students next fall. I'm just on the, yeah,
Stab at that $500,000.
okay, wow,
Yeah.
okay, that's a good chunk of change. Not really touching the 3 million for the 25, certificated staff cost, but yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, thank you.
I would like to just echo the concerns of Sherry. I spoke with Dr. Sweeting a bit about it earlier this week too, but I would just really like to, I know that you all are working so hard, so I really appreciate all the work that the team is doing, but I do have concerns with that number. It just, and especially special education, because I know that our SPED population is growing and we're not getting enough funding. And so I would just want to make sure that the students who need the most are not getting as a high cut for their supports. And with the inclusion model, they're going to need more supports in the classroom. And like the supports don't go away. The student is still needing the supports. So those are my concerns. You can't answer or speak to that, but it needs to be said. And I also had the same thoughts for the athletic budget. So I think, now is probably the time where the budget advisory task force is kind of using a finer tooth comb to go through everything. So just really considering all of those, and my biggest concern has been not to take more from the students who have the greater needs. So, and it shows in the priorities, teaching and learning and safety and security, those are high on the priorities of everyone, so. Yeah. That's all I have to say.
I just want to share that I really appreciate all the work that you've been doing all year long to prepare us for this, and I know it hasn't been easy. It's heartbreaking when we have to send help away when we desperately need as much help as we can get, and our students are in great need. I appreciate all the time that you've taken to talk to the staff members and talk to the community and share as much information as possible. I have a kid with special needs and he needs all the help he can get. And so it breaks my heart to see cuts to the SPED program. I want to say that I appreciate all the staff members that have spoken up and shared their concerns. And I think the community echoes almost exactly the same concerns. So we want the best for our kids. We want them to have the best education. And also we want to live within our means. And so this correction is necessary. And I'm sad, but it's part of life that when we exceed our expenditures, we don't have enough revenue. We have to make this correction. I feel like it's absolutely essential to stay solvent, to stay responsible, to live within our means, to be good examples and good stewards of our taxpayer money that we have. And I just wanted to share that I was able to attend the budget forum that we had at Post, and I have read all of the comments and cried and worried. I just want to read one thing that that just hit my heart. One of the comments was, I hope that my teacher can keep her job. And I do too. I want all the teachers to know how much we appreciate them and all of the sacrifices and hard work that they've done to help our kids learn through a very tumultuous time. And I want to say thank you, Gina, for all that you're doing to help us get back on track, to live within our means, and that we can continue to do the best we can for our kids. Thank you. This is not an action item tonight. It is,
Do we want to
A
look at the
draft.
resolution for
let's
you?
do it, let's review it.
Because you'll see it again. And I'll quickly go through that. That third paragraph is a restatement of the problem that we need to reduce. We do not have the presently assured financial resources to maintain the programs and services at the present levels. And it goes through the reasons, combined reasons. In the fourth paragraph, it again states the need to reduce, and specifically states talking about timely notification to employees who would be affected by the plan. And skipping down to now therefore be it resolved, there's 3 items in there. It talks about the plan, the educational program attached here too, which is the list. And then the superintendent is authorized to take such action to implement the plan. That's number 2. And then the third step talks about if there's significant variations that need to be done, that we will update the board of those variations. We need to do more, or if revenues, if there's great relief comes from the state and we are able to not have to reduce by the amount that we projected, that would come back to the board and we talk about those. And that's before the budget has to be adopted, the real official budget for next year. And as you know, that's not needing to be adopted until August. But we have to do all of this prior to that because of the timely notification laws. And quite frankly, it is also the most fair to employees to do this. And that's all I would share about that resolution.
Is there any comments about the resolution or any amendments anyone like to forward?
When's the vote?
Our
April
next,
10.
when would the notifications go out? For that meeting, for the staff members that are affected?
Oh, once the plan is approved by the board, then if it's approved on the tenth, I plan to meet with, building, and department supervisors, and we will develop communication plan that would take place, because I would be involved in that too. Not that week, but the next week after that. We've kind of got a sequence, but all before, the 24th, the next board meeting. Because we would bring to the board on the 24th on the, payroll, we would bring the names.
And then with the staff members that are affected, would they be able to collect unemployment?
That. I don't like to speak to those details at all, because I don't know. That's our benefits
But they would
specialist.
be eligible to be rehired if there was an opening that was needed.
So for on the non-renewal, when jobs come open, they can reapply. It's different than when we do RIF and it's purely by seniority, there's a sequence of bringing them back. But when you're non-renewed, they see a position, they apply and they interview.
I do think they are, but I do not want to speak authoritatively about that and give incorrect information about unemployment benefits.
Another time piece to this is the legislators they get done on the 23rd. So we also, if we sense or get word that we think there might be new revenues coming in, we may delay a little bit. We're monitoring some of the bills that are happening just to see. Because anybody that we do not have to non-renew, that'd be great. So.
Can I ask one more question? Sure. Have you been looking at next year's budget, and would we have to make any substantial cut next year, or would we be able to hold steady?
That remains to be seen. Yeah, I can't answer that yet,
Hopefully just one big cut and then
but there's
hold steady.
too many factors still that would change that answer, so.
Are there any other comments from anyone else on Zoom or on the board here in person? We do have other things on our agenda, so I want to thank you, Gina, for sharing. Very important topic. Next up is our asset preservation program report. We want to welcome Brian Lewis. Good evening.
Good evening, directors. Moment to get started. So every year, we're required to make a report to you regarding the condition of our school buildings as they're determined by certified building analysis. And that certification is only every 6 years, but we still have to conduct that same inspection every year during that interim period. And that's what I'm going to present to you tonight. This should be familiar to you. You've seen this before in prior years. The asset preservation program, it's part of our requirement when we accept state matching dollars for capital construction projects. That we, when the board accepts that money, then we make a pledge as a district to maintain the buildings and to do an assessment on those buildings every year for a 30-year period. And then there is a scale that we're measured against, and to continue to be eligible for state matching funds for future projects, we have to meet or exceed the score that's contained in that scale based on the age of the building. So that's what I'm going to be presenting to you tonight. So we've got 3 buildings that are part of this program, and these are all buildings that the district received state matching funds for at some point when they were constructed. Those buildings are Kent Prairie Elementary, Arlington High School, and President's Elementary. Now, the table I'm going to show you is going to have multiple lines for each one of those sites because there's different components of the building that are part of the assessment program. Again, we're required to do this annually. Every 6 years, we have to do employ a certified assessor to do those assessments for us. That's going to be in 2026. We're lucky we've got several certified assessors local to us that can help us with that. So here, this table presents the results for the three buildings. You may remember in the past that Eagle Creek Elementary was one of these buildings, but it reached that age of 30 and age out of the program. So the buildings we're looking at tonight are Kent Prairie, the main building, the covered play area, Arlington High School, the main building, and the Industrial Arts Building, and the Greenhouse Building, and the President's Elementary. So those buildings are listed in the first column. The age of the building is listed in the second column. The condition or the score from last year from 2022, the score from this year from 2023, and the standard score that we have to meet or exceed. Good news is that we're meeting or exceeding all of the standards set by OSPI for the condition of our buildings. You can see there's been some changes from last year, this year. I just want to give you some detail on that. Kent Prairie, the score went up because we installed a pair of new boilers in the building that were funded by the 2020 capital levy program. That caused the score to increase. Covered play area, the score remained static. We've got some work to do in that space. There's some painting and some repair work that we need to do there. Arlington High School, the main building, the score declined slightly. That's due to an identified project. This is all articulating with our master facilities plan because we conducted a review of all the roofs in the district. And part of what we found was that several of our buildings will need re-roofing in the next 4 years. Arlington High School is one of those buildings. That's why the score, even though we put a lot of work into that building in the prior 2 years, it did cause the score to go up from 89 to 91.62. The condition of the roof is driving it back down to 90.93. We're still well in excess of the OSPI standard, though, at Arlington High School main building. The Industrial Arts Building, we had a dip in the score there as well. That's because the building needs to be painted. It is a metal building, and if we don't care for it by painting it, then we can be subject to some corrosion of that metal siding. And the greenhouse is in good shape. No changes there. President's Elementary, we did see a small decline in the score there as well, and that's again due to the big issue. There's some text about the different issues that cause the scores to change. And that's the entirety of my presentation. There is no asking me to pass a resolution or anything like that, just providing you information here. Any questions I can answer? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Next up, we'll have our second reading and adoption of board policy 3230, student privacy and searches.
Good evening, directors. So I'm back here with the second reading of two policies. First one being 3230, student privacy and searches. No questions during the first reading, just kind of reordering of the information, and then a lot of stuff moved to the procedure here.
Is there any other further discussion or question? This is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve policy 3230, student privacy and searches?
Make a motion, we approve policy 3230.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve board policy 3230, student privacy and searches. Madam Clerk.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp,
Aye. That policy is adopted. Next up, we'll have 3421, child abuse, neglect, and exploitation prevention. Carrie.
So, yep, this is second reading of this policy as well. A lot of the information here has been struck, moved to the procedure, which outlines a lot of definitions of each of the child abuse, neglect, and exploitation, where it just is one sentence here in the red right above IJK. That lists an explanation for child abuse and then neglect and exploitation. Other than that, everything has been moved to the procedure.
There was no discussion or consideration of any changes last meeting. Does anybody have any changes that they would like to see to this policy, or do we have a motion to approve it as presented?
I make a motion, we pass policy 3421 for child abuse, neglect, and exploitation prevention.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve board policy 3421. Madam Clerk.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Thank you. That policy is adopted. Next up, we would like to discuss our second reading and adoption of board policy 4060, distribution of materials. And I'd like to welcome Gary Kimball, our Director of Communication.
Good evening, directors. This is the second reading for policy 4060. As you can see, there are just a few minor word changes for this policy. There was some discussion at the last meeting, but there are no changes.
Are there any changes anyone would like to see to this policy? Do we have a motion to approve 4060?
I'll make a motion to approve 4060.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve board policy 4060, distribution of materials. Madam Clerk.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
All right, thank you very much. That brings us to our informational items portion of the meeting. We'd like to start with our superintendent's report. Dr. Sweeten.
I want to just highlight again the fifth grade camp that took place last week. It was a highlight of those students' lives for sure. I just thank the elementary principals for making it happen, but especially Colleen Van Bell, the principal at Hip Prayer, because she did a lot of the legwork in advance of getting that going. One of the principals, Bethany Belial, had sent an update to families last week when they were at camp, when Eagle Creek was at camp. And she said, we had a great second day at camp. Students went to 6 different learning stations today and had some fun free time. Highlights included rock climbing, fire building, archery, and the food, which she listed the food like sausage and eggs and hash browns for breakfast and homemade deep dish pizza for lunch and barbecue chicken for dinner. And they did so much more, but it was just they got up and they had to be at the flagpole at 6:45 a.m. and they were busy the whole day. And then at 9 o'clock they had a campfire and it was awesome, but they were tired. You know, it was a long day, but it was an awesome experience and it was all good. So they're looking for, that was funded through a grant, and they're looking for another grant that, if maybe not that same one, but maybe to do this again. It was successful. The next thing I was going to share is that we talked a bit about during our budget presentation about, you know, different ways to bring in revenue and also to talk about benefits of our programs. So Mr. Sable has created a kindergarten video with the help of other district staff members to talk about why is it important to come to kindergarten and experience that learning during that young time. And so that's on our website. It's been pushed out and registration has started, and we already have new students signing up right now. So wanted to share that with everyone. The next thing I'd like to say is that next week is spring break, so everybody's looking forward to that. And because it's spring break and most everybody will be out trying to relax and renew and recharge, the district office, it's important that if you want to meet with someone, that appointments are encouraged. So someone can be here and make sure there's someone here if you really need an appointment next week. So appointments are encouraged. And because it is spring break next week, the April 10th board meeting will be published early. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that we normally publish the Thursday before, but we publish early. So just a heads up, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we'll have our legislative update and discussion. Director Kelly.
Hi there. So I did just get off a meeting on Zoom with our monthly ledge rep with Marissa Rathbone at the helm. Great meeting as always, just so much packed in there. Still learning a lot, so forgive me as I try to unpack all this great information. So we have about 4 weeks left of the legislative session. I will say, as eager as we are to get info about Olympia's intentions, there's a real strong likelihood it will go into extended session. And Marissa likes to call it extra innings. So I agree, high probability. Also, what was shared was that the budget for K-12 education between the House and the Senate we've never seen it this far apart. The range of what the Senate wants to cover and what the House wants to cover are pretty far apart. So they will have to come to an agreement of what that looks like. And that would be an inclination why they would have to go into special session for that. So stay tuned. Second thing, want to let you know that in terms of any legislative action, really at this point, it's a matter of contacting the two committees, either Ways and Means or Appropriations. So connecting with those, if you have a legislator on either of those committees, that's the one we would want to be in touch with. And I will look through. I went to a town hall a week ago and met with Ron Mazzal and Dave Paul, great guys, and sort of opposite sides of the aisle, but very cohesive in their message. And I really appreciated the time, and I really went up to them and appreciated that they came to Arlington. They were at the Boys and Girls Club, and just wanted to introduce myself and get to know them a little better. But Olympia is pretty functional at this point, and people did make comments that it is more functional than it was either maybe during COVID. So that's progress. Third thing, just want to mention that we're also, as we're wrapping up this legislative session, we as a board, please start thinking about any positions we might want to submit or change for next year. Believe it or not, the window for next year's session of what our agenda would be opens up April 17th and closes May 12th. So that's coming up around the corner, and it's a short window. And what was recommended was for us, this could be spoken of during maybe a study session of anything that's an existing position that we would want to see be proposed next year. Any amendments we want to make, this would be the time to say that. Do that in a study session. And then this does have to, we have to reveal this in an open public meeting. So we could talk about this. Please look at the agenda, and those dates I can email Mary as well, just so you have a copy of that, Mary. But that's something that if we want to propose something, we have to do it during an open public meeting. So anyway, I'm just briefing you on that, but yeah, we're not even done with this session, and we already have to think about next year. So I will write some points down as well of what looks like might not fully make it where we want it to be. And if you have thoughts on special education, transportation, that sorts of things, please, let's put that together. And it was recommended that if we have the same message with other districts, obviously it will have that much more strength. And, if we know of other districts that are in line with that, that would be great to submit that together. So that's my update. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kelly. Next up, we'll have our updates from board members. Student Advisor Schroeder, do you want to share any comments?
I have no comment at this time.
All right. Director Knapp.
Sure. I mean, feels like a lot has happened in the last couple of weeks. I went to the Future Freshman Night at AHS with my first future freshmen, and so that was really awesome. I think that one thing with COVID is I feel like a lot of us elementary, our students were fifth graders when COVID hit, and we all just kind of went our own different ways, and we all kind of came back together at future freshman night, and it was really great. And fifth grade camp looks amazing, so I hope that my fourth grader can do that next year. And just looking forward to spring break. So kind of reflecting on everything that we went over tonight and get some clarity. I hope. So
Thank you. Director Ray, do you have any comments tonight?
No comments.
All right. Director Kelly, would you like to share any additional insights or comments about anything else?
Just a little humor when we talk about spring break. Yes, I am looking forward to it as well. But I'm having parent conferences this week. And one of my students' mothers told me today that her daughter was, kind of confused about this spring break because it's kindergarten. They don't understand all those details. And she said she was worried that she wasn't going to come back to the ocean classroom after spring break. Like that was it. Like Mrs. Kelly's done after spring break. So I think we're all looking forward to it. And yes, I appreciate the information and kudos to everyone really with all the research and really with a heart trying to do its best. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kelly. Director Kingman.
No comments tonight, thank you.
Well, I just wanted to share that I enjoyed the community presentation of Kevin Hines at the BPAC last week, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity our kids had to learn from him and to hear some words of wisdom. So I'm grateful our schools were able to have that. I want to remind everybody about our next upcoming meetings. We have a special meeting on tomorrow night. We have a budget community forum, and a forum could possibly be present. It's going to be Tuesday, March 28th at 6 p.m. at Eagle Creek. We also have a special board meeting study session with board action and public comments on Monday, April 10th at 5 p.m. in the boardroom. So that's a different location and a different time. So make sure you note that it's 5 p.m. for a study session with action in the boardroom. So it's a little different. And then we have our next regular board meeting on Monday, April 24th at 6 p.m. here in the boardroom. If there's nothing else, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Madam Clerk.
All right, here we go.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. All right, thank you. Have a good night. Drive safe.
Good night.